creative entrepreneurs about how to build your business, how to sustain, maintain, grow, and create a successful creative business. And I'm exceptionally happy to have my friend Cory Morrison here as my first guest. Cory, as many of you already know, is one of the co-founders of Big Jump, and to talk to him about his origin story and to really learn what it takes in today's world to become successful at the creative business. It's it's always, we all know that having an idea is only the beginning of the journey, but there's so many things that happen along the way that define your ability to be successful or not. So, Cory, glad to have you here. I think before we start talking to Cory, we're going to show a little show reel here, and I'm going to share my screen now. So everybody should be able to see my screen at this point, and we're going to show you a little bit of the beautiful work that Big Jump does.
Big Jump.
Great. Well, wow. I think that speaks a lot about what we're trying to achieve here today. That's such beautiful animation, and it shows so much creativity and talent. But Cory, you're going to start talking to us about how things just don't get to that point without a lot of hard work, some good breaks, some bad breaks. And so why don't we kick off by you telling us a little bit about yourself, about how all of this came to happen in 2008.
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, thank you very, very much for having me as your first guest. I'm very honored. I appreciate it very much, Bill. Geez, I don't even know where to begin, to be honest. Like 2008 was an interesting year. It was recession, and why we started a studio at that time is kind of remarkable. But how it all sort of came to be is I've been sort of involved, or I've been part of the animation business for some time. It's now this is my 19th year in the business, and before that, my brother, who's also my partner, he's been in the business for about 34 years now. So he's 14 years my senior. So he's been doing this for some time, and he was a co-owner of Funbag Animation Studios way back in the 90s, and so he was already well versed in what was to be as far as what a company should be at that time. And before that, what really got me interested in the first place was, I remember when I was 8 years old and He-Man Masters of the Universe came out, and he was one of the animators on it. So I knew what I wanted to do from a very, very early age, and I just wanted to work with my brother. And it took a few years to get there. I went through Sheridan College and worked my way up at Funbag and through Amberwood Studios, and as a storyboard artist for a number of years for various studios across Canada. And then an opportunity came to be where Funbag was eventually bought out. I believe it was the first animation studio in Canada to actually be sold. The partners went their separate ways, and then I went and I went to my brother. I said, "You want to start up another studio?" And he basically said, "Are you nuts?" And so it came to be. And it was also at a time when the digital sort of I guess revolution sort of really sort of hit home for animation. Before that, it was still all paper and pencil for the most part. So a good friend of mine, Rod Amador, who's also one of our partners, I went to school with him back in Sheridan, and he knew the digital pipeline inside and out. So he was the perfect person to bring on board, and now he is not only a really, really close friend of mine, he's one of our partners, and he is the VP of production at Big Jump, and he's the one that makes sure that our pipeline is moving smoothly and deals with the clients and so on and so forth. So it's been excellent so far. So yeah, in 2008 we started it up. We moved into the CTV building here in Ottawa, and it started. It was about 2,800 square feet. It was pretty small. It wasn't huge. We were doing a lot of small contracts, a lot of storyboards, small little commercials, and a little bit of some design projects. And then we eventually got a show called Secret World of Benjamin Bear, season 4, which I was involved with previously on the last 3 series of the co-director along with Chris Shoughton, and this is through Amberwood Entertainment. So we convinced them to make it digital. So before that, it was all hand drawn. Everything about it was all posed and laid out here in Ottawa, and then was sent overseas to be animated. So we just it wasn't hard to convince them to change it to digital. So we did up a test. We showed it to them. They loved it, and that was basically the real start to the company and starting to make a name for ourselves. So yeah.
It's safe to say that you actually hit the ground, if not running, walking, because you did have a couple of contracts. You weren't doing your business development. You weren't setting up shop and then looking for customers. You had some gigs, some work, and some revenue coming in right away.
Yeah, like between the 3 of us, we already had several gigs. We were doing several gigs ourselves, regardless. So we just sort of compiled it all into one and put it all under one roof at the time. So, it was financially it was quite a lot to deal with at the time, because you have to build the business, and it's not like the way it was, in the 90s, where everything was paper and pencils. Like, you could start a company for probably under $20,000. Now it's like you're talking, $250,000 to $300,000 to get things going and moving forward, between the space, the size, the space that you technically need now, all the tables, desks, chairs, the software, the hardware, render farms, FTPs, technical support, so on and so forth. It's kind of endless. So we had to make that choice, and that's where we went. And we figured, I guess, as the old saying goes, you just as an entrepreneur, you'd rather spend 100 hours a week working your butt off, so you don't have to work 40 hours a week for someone else, right? So and that's really what it is,
Yeah, that's an amazing way to actually. It's a really positive way to look at it, because it's obvious that, and I know this from working with creative people for so many years now, the passion is what drives you, and then nobody really looks at their watch, do they? Nobody's really, working a 9-to-5 job when you're in animation. I think everybody who's attending today and listening in on this knows that nobody's keeping normal hours here.
No, it's a creative business, and there are certainly days when, as a creator or an artist of some, you have your good days and your bad days. And the good thing is that I find that when you do have a really great day, and it's just, even when you're drawing all the time, it flowed right out of your hand onto the paper or onto the screen. And then you'd have days where, as a storyboard artist, you'd hit a paragraph or even a sentence. It was complete mind blocking. You can't get through it. So literally, you got to set it aside, walk away from it, take a breath, and then hopefully get back to it, within a few hours or even the next day. Sometimes that's the way it has to be. it's creative. It just doesn't. It's not. It's like flipping a switch, right?
So going back to the beginning, then, I mean, you make the commitment to renting space. You've got to build out workstations for employees. You need to start paying salaries. Did you guys put together a budget in place? Did you start thinking about what kind of revenue you needed to generate? How you separated roles and responsibilities to do all of this?
It was, there wasn't really an exact plan. We knew what we wanted to do. We needed the space. We knew that we had some small contracts, but we knew that if we were actually going to make a play at this, that we needed enough space to do one full, animated production, one full service production in-house. So you needed about, 20 to 30 seats, maybe a bit more than that at the time. So we made sure that we suited up for that. We tried to keep it as small as possible, knowing the general numbers that we needed in order to complete a full show. But we also relied heavily on people that like to work out of their basements and have their own sort of setups at home, and we still do that today. It allows us to sort of keep our space, condense our space down, so we don't have to pay out more rent, get more desks, more tables, chairs, all that sort of all that nonsense, when people just simply want to work at home anyway. So even now we have half of our staff is in-house and the other half is at a house. So, and that worked very, very well for us. But as far as like the plan, it was just basically pedal to the metal, get as much small contracts in until we got the big one. And I think it took about 4 or 5 months before we finally landed the Ben Bear season 4 contract. And then towards the end of that contract, the CTV building burnt down. So that was exciting, to say the least. Yeah, Super Bowl Sunday on, I think it was February 7th, 2010 is when we got a call, and there was no more studio. It was gone. So.
Did you have what was the implication for that on the actual work product? Things that you had done, was there backups? Did you lose a lot of actual work product?
Fortunately, yeah, we had everything backed up off site, thank God. But we had no way to move forward. Everything was destroyed. So. The good thing was that the company whom we were doing Ben Bear for, they allowed us to move into their offices temporarily to finish the project. We were about 2 episodes from completion, thank goodness. So it wasn't horrible, but it delayed everything for about, I'd say, 3 weeks before we could actually, because we needed more computers, we needed everything. We had to get everything sort of pulled together and makeshift very, very quickly in order to finish the series and get it out the door. And then we had to look at, what are our next steps at this point? Thank goodness for insurance. That's all I got to say about that. And now and then we moved into the space that we're in right now. But it was at a time where you're just trying to establish yourself and try to get things going. And man, no one really expects something like that. And there was a lot of frustration at the time. But we got through it, and it wasn't as horrible looking back on it now as it was at the time when we were going through it. But we managed, right? And you have to keep pushing forward. You have to keep persevering and pressing on. Yeah. So.
If we take a step back, though, one of the things I'm learning about all of this is all that previous experience that you guys had really helped you understand how to set up a production pipeline, even to anticipate, if you had the goal of doing a series and doing a season of a series, to be able to say, how many people you would need to have working on that series, how to probably break down a production into roles and responsibilities. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, like at the time, like we were veteran artists. Rick was in it for a long time. He's directed, he's produced, he's done tons of things. He has a lot of contacts in the business. Myself, is the same. Like just a lot of work. You know the process inside and out. and because you've been a part of it. I was directing for about 4 years prior to actually opening up the company. So you're very intimate with the pipeline. As at that time, for me, the pipeline wasn't digital yet. That's where Rod had to come on. When Rod was out in Halifax, he was working at a few of the studios out there, and they were really knee deep in, I think it was Flash and the digital sort of pipeline that was sort of immersing out of there. So they, when he brought that back to Ottawa, it was very, very beneficial. So he basically took the lead on that. And then through my contacts at Amberwood, that's how we got that first project, which I guess basically co-directed with Chris Houghton on that as well. So it really is who you know in the business, understanding what the production pipeline is, and making sure that you maintain and build those relationships. You know, there's got to be trust there. The only way people are going to trust you with millions of dollars is if they know you well enough that you can do it, or that you proved yourself within that space in order to get the job done. So we were fortunate to have the kind of contacts that we did at the time in order to get those contracts and get moving forward. So, and then from that, it just sort of ballooned.
Sorry, were you able to get those contracts without doing tests, or did you do tests?
Oh, no. I had to do tests, absolutely. I don't think there's been a show that we've ever worked on where we didn't have to do a test. Everyone always asks for a test. So it's just a sense of, it's a process. I think it's more of just to set everyone's mind at ease that you can do it, right? So, and that's not a problem. We're more than happy to do that. That's just part of building that relationship, people comfortable with their show, their babies, their money. You know, it's something that's very necessary in the business, I think.
And is there a standardization to sort of what a test means in terms of how many seconds of animation they're looking for you to produce? What are they providing you with? Storyboards, animatics? What kind of budget do you put in, even internally, against a test? Like how far are you willing to extend yourself to get the business? Or is that a function of what the business might potentially be worth for you, in terms of what they're going to pay?
Well, normally for tests, they don't pay anything. So it's, hopefully it's no more than about 30 seconds. And generally speaking, it never is. You can pretty much get across what you're capable of doing in that amount of time with animation, background, BG Paint, so on and so forth. It's no more than that. But, you put in the time and the effort, and whatever the cash that needs to go out to do that is minimal in comparison to the contract that you could land in order to keep you going for about a year, because that's what these contracts do. They keep you busy for about 52 to 60 some odd weeks, right?
Yeah, and I guess just also for the benefit of our audience, at this point, Big Jump is not. May have started off as a service studio, but you're starting to develop your own intellectual property now as well. But for those who might think about it, and we had this discussion previously, I think it's not unrare for us to find service studios where the service work actually pays for the development of your own intellectual property. So some thoughts about that, please.
Well, it has to. Most companies right now, there's certainly a few out there that are just complete service from stem to stern, but I think the best balance for any studio is about 50% service, 50% proprietary. So you need to build a library. You need to start. You need to have that. That's something that you can eventually sell one day, or at the very least, continue to draw money in from sales 5 to 10 years down the road. So that's what makes a company worth something. If you're just a service studio, although that's kind of changing a little bit, it's a little bit more difficult for someone to come in and buy a studio that really doesn't own the building that you're in. You can't hold on to the staff, so on and so forth. So you're not really purchasing much there. But if you own some intellectual properties, well, that changes everything, especially if they're successful intellectual properties. So that's what everybody's hope is, right? Everyone's looking for that golden nugget, that SpongeBob SquarePants, that Keith's Adventure Time, those types of shows that just really connect to a wide range of adults and kids alike, right? So for us, we knew very early on that we needed to look at doing our own proprietary project. So I sort of started that. My role sort of moved into more of the development aspect of things, on top of directing series as they come in, animation supervising, or whatever was sort of necessary. Everyone wears a lot of hats here, so you do what you need to do in order to get the job done. But as far as development was concerned, I started to lead the charge there. So I think it was around 2000, 2011 is when we actually started to look at coming up with our own ideas, just sort of internally. And Shutterbugs ended up being one of those ideas that we finally sold to TVO, SRC and Knowledge, and it's going to air this fall on this fall. So we're super excited about that. It's a bit of a game changer for us, I think, because now you're not just a service company. You're a content creator, right? People can now look at you as like, okay, yes, you can come up with ideas, you got great ideas, but now you can also finance them, follow through on creating them and getting them produced. So. It's a long road. Development is a tremendously long road from stem to stern on any project. It goes through many incarnations from the original idea to the final output or what ends up on the screen at the end of the day. But it's a really fun process, to say the least.
So let's talk about that a bit. You have basically about 3 years from 2008 to 2011 to build up your war chest. To finance the development of Shutterbugs. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about that specific project. What was the seed of the idea? Where did it come from? Who did the writing? What were the steps? And then we're talking from 2011 now to almost the third way through 2016 to it was probably green, but no, I mean that's probably understanding the long play, right, and having patience and not having unrealistic expectations.
Well, that's exactly how long it takes. It's kind of we're very new to it as well, so it's going to take a little bit longer for us because we've never done it before. I've never developed something from scratch and was able to sell it to a broadcaster. It's just that's the time that it took, and I think going forward it should start to smooth out a little bit more. But the initial idea for Shutterbugs was originally called Flicker Flutter, and it was based off a painting I did for my newborn son that I hung in his room, and I wanted to sort of stem an idea where I wanted to have sort of bugs that lived in a marsh. Solving issues or problems using technology. And that was the general premise of it. And then we brought on two guys, Craig Young and MCM. They were heavily involved with Rob the Robots, and I think they're involved with some Guru projects now. And they're a really solid writing team. I think they're called Brain Bones is their company name. But we brought them on before they were even that. And we sat down. We literally sat down. We had a few drinks one night at a local bar. We just started hashing out ideas, and Flicker Flutter eventually turned into Shutterbugs, and then the concept of shedding light on everyday fears or anxieties sort of became the general premise for it. And then it sort of evolved from there. So we hired those guys to help come on board to develop the series. So we paid them a lump sum over a course of time in order to get that done. We had bring educational consultants on board because it's a preschool series. You can't do a preschool series, especially an educational preschool series, without the experts that know the content inside and out and can add their expertise into it. So
let's stop there for a second, Cory. What those experts? What are they? What are some of the key elements of a preschool series then that are required to integrate into a show?
Well, if you're, well, it depends on who you're pitching. Treehouse is not a very, there's no education to it. It's pure entertainment, I think. And TVO, you have to have a math or science or some sort of curriculum attached to it. And when you have curriculum attached to your concept, you have to make sure that it's accurate because you are dealing with the education of kids that are watching it. You know, you need to have those elements involved, and they need to be fleshed out early. So you don't necessarily have to decide whether it's going to be a math show or a science show. For Shutterbugs, it's a combination of both, and I think that was actually one of the things, one of the selling points of it, is because there were various different avenues that we could approach the series in. It was essentially about how these bugs would solve stress-related issues with other residents in the Murky Marsh, and including themselves. So different various coping mechanisms for kids to deal with, whether they're trying new foods or standing up in front of the class, or they might have lost something. How do you cope with these things? I think it's just a different tangent, but there was the Canadian Psychology Institute has something called Kids Have Stress Too, and we emphasized that at the time with TVO, and they really got it right off the get-go. There was literally no additional development once after we pitched it to TVO. It was pretty much greenlit, I'd say. God, I think it was only a few weeks later. It didn't take long, and then away we went, and then we had to finance it. So, and that's where the fun happens right there. So.
Well, we can talk about that a little bit now. I have to say that I probably would have benefited from the series on stress management and coping. So it's too bad it's only coming out in 2016. Darn it. So now we talk about financing, but also I have to say that congratulations on first of all getting it done, but also on again sort of understanding or doing your due diligence and doing your homework to build out the components properly, to understand what was going to meet the criteria, and also understanding the broadcaster needs. I guess that's also very important, sort of reverse engineering from what the broadcasters need or are looking for.
Well, yeah, you do need to have an idea of what they're looking for, because if you bring them an idea that is simply not a fit, they're just going to look at you like, well, why are you bothering? So you got to do your homework. You got to know what the broadcasters are looking for. If it's educational, you got to make sure that you have the appropriate people attached to the project. The package has to be solid. You have to have the correct people attached to it. You not necessarily. It's not always the better the name or the more experienced person the individuals might have. As far as being a part of the project, that's not necessarily what it is. It's just the full package, making sure that you have all the box check mark before you bring it to a broadcaster, so that they know that you've done your due diligence in order to make sure that the process is smooth for them. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so the package itself, well, actually two things. I mean, if somebody had to research a broadcaster, sort of understand within different segments what they're looking for at different age ranges, what's the best source of information for things like that?
Go online, look at what the networks are airing at right now. You get a really good sense about what they're looking for and what they want. It's amazing what you can find on YouTube. There's quite a few broadcasters and developers that have tons of information. Like this, for instance, we're doing a webinar with me. There's now that it would be public knowledge. It'll be out there, right? People will be able to listen to it whenever. There's that stuff. It's out there. You just got to look for it. You got to take the time. But the biggest thing is just look at the channels. Look at what they air. Look at the types of shows that they greenlight. Those are the types of shows that you got to sort of look at, and then you got to sort of try to follow the trends that are happening right now. There's a trend with the STEAM with STEAM, the science, technology, oh, geez,
Yeah.
okay, there's
Yeah.
that's going on right now. So you can, but you also got to look at the fact that if you decide to develop something with a trend right now, it's not going to be about 2 or 3 years before it's actually going to get on the air. At that point, the trend's over. So you got to try to sort of anticipate the next one that's coming up, and that's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. You just got to keep your eyes and ears open and stay involved with what's going on in the business. Listen, read playback, follow as many articles as you can, stay in tune with what's going on out there.
Are there any key sort of, I know there's Animation Magazine, that's always a good who's doing what, but what are your sort of favorite sources of reading online? And even shows, by the way, because we met our first time at Kidscreen. So what are the good networking shows? What are some of your sort of online go-tos?
Like networking shows like Kidscreen and Kidscreen, the Ottawa Animation Festival for sure. You've got to build those relationships. You got to be in the room with the broadcasters. You have to be in the room with the various partners who are going to help you make the shows real. So, even with us, we might not necessarily have what we're looking for. So we might need to bring another partner on board in order to make it happen. So you might want to go to a Ninth Story. You might want to go to a DHX and present your property. And with them in tow, you'll help finance your series, and you also have a better idea of getting it done and put on the air. So it's all about who you know, guys. It's being in the room and understanding, the more you talk to these people, the more you build those relationships, it goes a tremendously long way. More so than a cold call or a cold email, that's for sure.
Well, absolutely, and I think that anybody who's been to shows knows that, these are relationships that are forged over years and years. You tend to see the same people who are showing up at the same shows, a Cartoon Connection, a Kidscreen, a MIP, an Ottawa Film Festival.
Well, that's it.
It's a bit of a circuit.
Well, if you look at like F is for Family, the show that we just finished for Netflix, that was built on literally a 3-year relationship that evolved over a number of Kidscreens. Rick was introduced to the Gaumont team at it was Cartoon Connect, which is another good place to go.
Yeah, I love that show.
It's been great, and you meet a lot of really wonderful people, and it's you socialize with them. You go out, you have a few drinks, you go out to dinners, you're in the same room, and you start developing those relationships. And for a long time, we were just simply trying to find a project that we could work on together. And because of the type of shows that we do on the service end, a lot of prime time, it was a perfect fit because they'd never done a primetime series before. We had done several at that point, so they certainly looked to us to help did really sort of help to get that show animated or look the way it needs to look, right? So it was really, really great in that respect. But it took that long in order to get a project or work on something alongside those guys. So it just takes time. But if you didn't build that relationship 3 years, if you didn't start it, it wouldn't have happened. So again, it's just being in the room. Cartoon Connect, the Ottawa Animation Festival, Kidscreen, going to these places, going to these functions, and rubbing elbows with the people that are in it. It's incredibly important.
Just as a side note, I know neither you or I endorse drinking, but it does seem to come up a little in conversation. So it seems to be able to lubricate both the creative process, but also the friendship making process as well.
Well, yeah, you certainly
do that with sodas as well.
Yeah. But
so,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Cory.
No, go ahead. You're about to say something.
Yeah, well, no, I was just thinking that, a part of what I always seem to come up against when I talk to people or when I advise people who are saying they have concepts and intellectual property, and we need to talk about investment, because I often use the analogy that if somebody had an idea to build a restaurant, I mean, what does it take to make a restaurant? You have to rent space, you have to buy equipment, you have to hire chefs. You could be looking at anywhere between $500,000 and $1 million to make a restaurant. But people rarely think, I think, of their creative businesses as something that they need to put money into. And that that investment can manifest itself in traveling to shows because, like you said, 3 years of paying for the travel to go to Kids Screen is what ultimately got you a very valuable contract with Goma, right? So maybe we can talk a little bit about, not specific dollars, but about, the importance of being able to, finance your business.
You try to hold on to as much of the profits as you can. You try to make deals where you can hold on to some of the tax credits that are held back. You try to you look at every avenue that you can in order to keep it in house, or you pay out of pocket. It's when it comes down to like developing concepts, there's the pre-dev funds that you can go for. Through the government, you can get up to anywhere up to about, I guess, $15,000 for a particular idea. That certainly helps. That helps with the travel. That helps develop the pitch package that you're going to those kid screens and those auto animation festivals in order to pitch. You do a lot of service work, and you set money aside in order to make sure that you can still produce this stuff. You have to do it. You have to be, I guess, frugal is the word. You try to do it for the least amount of money that you need to put into it in order to make it happen. Otherwise, development ends up being a black hole. It's just one of those things where you keep pouring money into it, and if there's nothing, if you can't sell it, if you can't get it out there, if you can't get it bought, then it's money that's you cannot get back, right? So you have to try to do it as lean as you possibly can, and that's just a lot of elbow grease. I do a lot of it myself. So we'll hire. If we have productions going on in the studio, we'll incorporate that into what people are doing here. There's a lot of people that are itching to get into to develop ideas and concepts. If the creators are involved, they're putting their time into it. It's everybody's putting the time in order to make the shows happen. And everybody knows at the end of the day, everyone benefits if you get the show sold to a network. So it's just a lot of work, but it's very satisfying when you do. My goodness, it's wonderful. So I couldn't do anything else, to be quite honest.
I think you once told me development is a black hole, though. So what are sort of the from an advice point of view, what would you tell people in terms of sort of like what you have to recognize about the process and where you have to kind of start to look at warning signs and where there's even a cutoff point where you need to just sort of, stop sometimes, I guess, or are there, or you just have to just commit and just headlong into oblivion?
It depends on how passionate you are about the project. We had one project that, we had a lot, we loved it. It was done, the creator was someone here in Ottawa, and he did a great job. He put a lot of hours into it. We had the CMF pre-dev funds to help develop the package. We brought on educational consultants. We had a well-known writer involved. We did everything that we could. We spent a good chunk of change on that, trying to get it out there. But it was bad timing. As good as the project was, or what we thought it was, I still think it is. It wasn't what people were looking for at the time, or it was too similar to something that people already had or broadcasters already had. So, once you hit all the various broadcasters and they all say no, you can either do one of two things. You can go back and redevelop it, or you can put it on the shelf for a while. And in this case, we had to put it on the shelf for a while, and we had to move forward. So again, you try to do it within, you set a budget of what you can work with. You don't necessarily have to fly down and pitch the show in person with the broadcasters or partners. Sometimes you can send it through email. You can do a Skype call. You can there's various different ways that you can get in projects in front of people for sure. So it's just trying to do it in a very in a way that it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. It takes that time. So but you have to have that passion for it. You have to really want it. And we only take on projects that we honestly truly believe in. And if it hits a brick wall, it hits a brick wall. There's not much you can do about it. So you lick your wounds and you move forward and you move on to the next project. You have to keep pressing forward.
Can we spend a few minutes talking about pitching itself and sort of some of the, let's say, fundamentals and principles of pitching and best practices?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Know your material. Know it inside and out. And I guess, make it, for me, the pitch is like make it a conversation. Don't have the points in your head that you want to sort of express as to what the concept is, what the idea is, but make sure you're engaging the person who you're pitching it to, and not just sort of rambling off a script in your head without any breaks for that individual to sort of ask questions. You need to be able to ask questions. You want to make them interested in it. So it's good to have a couple of breaks in there and say, are there any questions yet, or any concerns, any thoughts so far? And believe me, there's a lot of back and forth. And the more you can get the individual involved in the conversation, the more interest they may have in it. You know pretty quickly whether you're into a project or not, probably within the first few sentences of what it is. Sometimes it's the title of the project or the concept that you're being pitched. So you can gauge pretty quickly what the response is going to be. If there's not a whole lot of discussion back and forth, likely it's not really going to go anywhere, right? So if the broadcaster or the production house that you're pitching to is asking a lot of questions, then there could be some potential interest in. And then they'll tell you right away after it's all said and done, so definitely send it out to me, or not, or it's just they'll tell you why it's not working, or you need to work on it a little bit more. You have to really think about this aspect or that, or where's the heart in this particular character, or what's the reason for it, so on and so forth. So just really know the stuff inside and out, so when you get asked questions, you have answers for them. You don't want to sit there going and so on and so forth. You gotta, like I am with this interview. So, but
not at all. You came well prepared. Your preparation, by the way, was your life story. It was like everything you've done up to now. That's why I invited you on.
Oh,
no, so
this is good.
This has been great, Cory. We have like a couple more minutes before we want to throw into questions, but just quickly, I mean, the pitch itself, the components of the pitch. You have the pitch Bible, correct? What have you sent them in advance of the meeting?
Well, then they already have a preconceived notion of what the project is. So
right. So what's that balance between how much do you want to tease them and what's the tease that gets the meeting?
Well, there's generally speaking, when you go to pitch projects, there's several ways to do it. There's a lot of the conferences. There's the speed pitches where you get in front of broadcasters or the potential partners, and you have about 2 or 3 minutes to sort of pitch your idea. Which is really all you need. If they like it, they'll say send it in. If they don't like it, they'll say no, right? There's no real specific way of getting it in people. You can send it out, you can send emails, so on and so forth. Again, you have to be in the room. So go to the kid screens and go to the auto animation festivals and so on and so forth, and enter those speed pitch sessions. It goes a long way. Or if you really have a good idea and you want to present it to a production company, ask to have a Skype meeting and pitch it through Skype. Most people they tend to just sort of send the concept through email, and sometimes it just sits there because we get pitches every single day. And there's only so much time in a day in order to look at everything. So it needs to stand out a little bit. So, be persistent with the individual who you're sending it to. Try to make it more personal. If you can set up a Skype meeting, that would be preferable. If you can get to those speed pitch meetings, that's a great way to do it. But have your package put together, have some great artwork involved. And everyone you pitch it to is different and what they look for and what they want. There's some people that want very little because it is what's the concept, what's the idea, and what's the motivation for the characters. They don't even need to necessarily see artwork. They just want to have it a bit more open-ended, so they know that they have lots to work with. Everybody wants to add their 2 cents, right? For me, I'd rather be a little bit more prepared. I want to make sure that the concept, the look, and the idea of the series is fleshed out to a point where I'm happy with it, that I think people would be looking for. And you're always, and make it very, very clear that you're always open to altering or changing things as you need to. It's all dependent on what everybody wants. It's a very collaborative effort. Once people get wind of the idea, or that they get involved with the idea, they want to add to it. And the more people that it's kind of like, I don't know. It's like you think about SpongeBob, how it affects everybody, right? Or Adventure Time, how it really gets in the mind of every single individual out there. Those are the type of ideas they're almost contagious. If your idea is contagious, it's a good idea, right? And that's the perfect scenario right there.
Just another quick question I had for you was about intellectual property and the protection of intellectual property. So when people are sending things to you, or when you're sending things out, typically, are you doing anything to safeguard your IP, or are other people requiring you to sign NDAs when they send you in things? How does that work?
It's generally through an NDA. When anyone pitches ideas to us, they have to sign a release form, essentially. So it protects them, it protects us. If anything sort of comes down, year, 2 year down the road, that if something could possibly be similar, everyone's protected. Let's face it, there's ideas, there's billions of ideas out there. You're bound to find ideas that are similar or, like in many different ways and in look or concept. So you just get the NDA, sign the documents, and everybody's sort of happy at the end of the day. Generally when we've pitched to broadcasters, we've never had to there's no release forms that we've ever had to sign so far, not that I know of anyway. And then I'm trying to think, but for us, definitely as a production company, if there are people, if they're pitching specific ideas that they have companies with a little bit more weight behind them, they will make you sign an NDA, and that's totally fine. There's no reason to not do that. It's all about the idea and making sure that it gets the best. It gets the best. Geez, I'm trying to think of the word. Shot, so to speak, right? But other than that, that's about it. You get people to sign an NDA. Not everybody will, though. So it's all dependent on whether they will or not, and whether you trust the companies that you're pitching your ideas to.
Well, if they're not, you kind of have to use your gut a little bit and say, do I still want to send that in, or do I sometimes have to walk away?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, Desi, I think you're listening in. I think we may have some questions, and we have about 10 minutes left now. So if anybody has questions for Cory,
that's
please
great.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Phil. Cory, this is really great. You have tons of questions. We'll answer a few of them, and whatever questions you have for Cory after the webinar, feel free to email us. We'll do our best to answer them. You can always email us at webinars@toonboom.com, and we'll try to get to your question as soon as possible. And for others who've been asking, yes, this webinar will be online within a couple days. Bear in mind, it is Easter weekend, so we'll have it up probably on our website by Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest, and that's at toonboom.com/webinars. Cory, can you tell us a little bit about how you manage subcontractors and the balance between in-house animators and people you send work out to within the industry?
Oh, it's the digital age. It's all through the FTP. We were using Toon Boom Manager before, so if we had out-of-house animators, for instance, it was very easy to communicate. The lines were always open. We talked to people through Skype. It was always very easy to manage people who worked out-of-house and people who worked in-house. It was never a problem with us. I know there's a lot of studios that expect everybody to be working in-house just to sort of keep keep tabs on everybody, I guess. But for us, it was always very open-ended. We trusted the people that we work with. We want to make sure that they're happy. If they're happy to wake up and sit at their desks in their underwear and do the work, then that's okay with us. So, never an issue there.
Great. There's a few questions about budgets as well, in terms of how do you manage your budgets, or how do you balance your budget? What are your biggest fears? What are your biggest accomplishments in terms of budgets? In terms of what the broadcaster has given you, what you have? How does, just maybe touch upon budgets a little bit?
Well, budgets, it depends. If it's your own projects, it's about trying to get it financed. So, the budget is what you can raise in order to make it happen. If you're looking at any sort of show, any series that you're trying to produce, you're looking at between $4 and $5 million to raise in order to produce the series. So, and there's only a few ways that you can do that. You do it through tax credits and pre-sales and distribution fees. It's all out there, and then there's usually always a gap that you have to sort of close at the end of the day, and you do that by not paying yourself or taking a chunk out of what you get paid on a day-to-day basis in order to deal with that. So it's not easy. As far as service work goes, it's sometimes essentially dictated to you what it is. Everybody wants you to sort of, put your budget together and this is what it is, but they always come back with the number, right? So you'll put your number out there. They'll say, well, that's too high. We're looking at more like this, and that's always the case. So, and you try to find the room in that budget in order to make that happen, because ultimately you want the project.
On the service work, is that per minute, per episode, per season? Usually, what are they asking you for to bid against?
Well, they usually want a per minute cost, but it tends to you break it down across the board with what the animation budget is, storyboard budget, background layout, so on and so forth. But it's one number, it's one cost at the end of the day. It doesn't have to get micromanaged right down to the last penny. It's just a general gist of what the overall budget's going to be, and then the details get worked out later.
Is there I don't think we should be discussing specifically what you're getting paid, but do you think you can discuss a range that we might see in terms of what service work is worth from a simple, a very simply animated series to something that's more complex?
I think if you're an animator, most animation, at least 2D animation, everyone gets paid on a per frame. I'm sure there's some companies out there that do pay salaries, but it's still based on how many frames they have to do on a per week basis. So, and that's anywhere between, I'm sure there's some studios out there that are like 80 cents a frame, right up to what we pay is between $1.35 to $1.50, depending on the series and the complexity. A lot of the prime time stuff that we do is a little bit more involved, so we pay certainly a higher rate for that. Storyboard is pretty much similar. Background paint, for us, BG paint and layout is all contract on a per piece basis, and then you have the in-house sort of salary positions, which is rigging, assembly, supervisory positions, and they all range depending on how many years they've been in the business or like good they are, and that's anywhere between like, probably about 1,200 to 1,500 or 1,600 a week, depending.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not bad.
So we've noticed that there's been a lot of, new platforms in terms of where animation is going right now with, digital platforms like Netflix and Hulu and Crave TV and all that, right? So
Yeah.
what do you see in terms of, the shift in animation right now, the style, the platform? Where do you see things going? Because it's not, we talked about TVO before, and, there's CBC in Canada and, CTV and all the specialty networks like Teletoon and all that. But now all of a sudden there's this whole new, world to animation, right? Where you can basically click onto your iPad and you can watch animation from any platform, right? So do you have any ideas or predictions of where things are going? Are you tailoring the content that you're pitching based on these platforms and all that?
Well, not really. I don't think that's changed much. It's just more people that we can pitch ideas to. So, Netflix and Amazon, that's all very, very good things. People want to be able to watch what they want to watch when they want to watch it. I was having this discussion, I think, not too long ago with a few people. So we now live in a world of access. People want to have access to everything. They don't necessarily want to own it. They want to have access to it. So, when it comes down to digital content or any sort of content, they just want to be able to watch it when they want to watch it. So I think, the networks will eventually have to go that direction as well. It's something that Netflix has really paved the way for, and people are just going to have to follow suit because that's just the way it is. As far as pitching ideas or selling ideas, it's all the same. Whether you're selling it to or you're pitching it to Teletoon or whether you're pitching it to Netflix, it's the same thing. It's just how it's acquired or what the license fees are. It would be different. I think Netflix, I believe, buys essentially outright, and then Teletoon and Canadian companies or Canadian networks, they give out license fees. So.
Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to touch on a few things. You have listeners from really around the world. We have listeners from Romania and Mexico, Canada, the US. So there's a lot of people who just wanted to say hello. Oh, and wanted to thank you for this webinar because it's really been informative. Sadly, we've run out of time. If you guys do have more questions that we didn't get to, which I see them in the question section, please email them to us and we'll try to answer them to the best of our ability. And we really hope that this webinar was informative to everybody. And Phil and Cory, I do assume you have some last words before we wrap it up.
I just want to thank Cory for being my first guest. It was awesome. I am so happy that we got to do this together. For our audience and for our audience's friends, there'll be more of these coming because I think this is an amazingly important topic to go over. And by the way, whether it's TV or film or games or creative services companies, we just touched at the end on content, but media is manifesting itself and animation is manifesting itself in so many different ways. It's a very exciting time to be in animation.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for this. It was great. I really enjoyed it. I hope everybody else did as well. It was a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for joining.
Take care.